Hey, it's Jeff Zito. Happy holidays, and thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber podcast, consistently in the top 5 on the Apple Podcast Music Interviews chart. Thank you so much for listening, as we're now in our 4th year. And if you want to go back in time and check out past guests and episodes, you could do so on celebrityjobber.com. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And very important, please subscribe. If you like what you hear, 5-star rating, and please leave a review. I know I've just asked a lot of you, but it really is important, and I thank you once again. So, I was thinking about this the other day. I love to be inspired. I love a story of redemption, and I'm just interested in hearing about other people. And when you think of the word celebrity, famous for being on TV, the movies, musicians, comedians, I often wonder what their life was like before the private jets and limousines and 5-star hotels. I love to find out what the person was like before they got all the attention. And I love to find out if there was a moment in their life that changed everything. A big break. So we're going to go back to 1985, okay? I'm a 10-year-old boy, a huge fan of Prince. Wanted to see the movie Purple Rain, but it was rated R. My parents were not going to take me to see a rated R movie, but luckily for me, I had a cool sister who's 12 years older than me, and she's still cool to this day. Shout out to Karen Pasillo. Back then, she was Karen Zito and took me to see Purple Rain under one condition. If there's any type of inappropriate scenes for a 10-year-old boy, I was going to get my eyes covered. And if you watch the movie Purple Rain now, it's not really that bad. It really, not at all. But, that one part when Prince and Apollonia were getting to know each other a little better in the basement of Prince's house, where was his bedroom. My sister's hand went over my eyes there. So one of the bands that was featured in the movie Purple Rain, Morris Day and the Time, was a big part of the Minneapolis music scene back then, and also worked alongside with Prince. My guest today was in Morris Day and the Time, talks about his relationship with Prince and how far it goes back. He's going to tell me about his big break, which you might find interesting, because I know I sure did. And he's also going to tell you something you may have not known about Prince, even though Charlie Murphy and Dave Chappelle made this pretty famous bit on The Chappelle Show. Plus, we're going to find out what his first job was and what he's up to today. His name, James Samuel Harris III, songwriter, producer, responsible for making Janet Jackson a superstar with her album Control and Rhythm Nation 1814. 31 top 10 hits in the UK, 41 in the US. In 2022, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. One half of the production team, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Just a little FYI, I'm actually wearing my Prince Purple Rain shirt right now, as I'm getting ready to talk to James Samuel Harris III, a.k.a. Jimmy Jam. It's my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Yeah, man, I got dressed. I got dressed for today.
I see you, Purple Rain. Okay.
Dude, yeah, man. Pleasure to meet you, man. I was just listening to something you did. Maybe it was Stern, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I heard about when you did Control. I was like, a little bit of a mistake, maybe, like you guys, you were like Peg in the Red, and they get the masters back. They're like, oh, what is this? And you're like Peg in the Red, and that was how that sound. You got that sound, and that was the way Prince liked it. You said.
Yeah, Prince always wanted, when we watched Prince record, he would always record with everything in the red, with the VU meters in the red. And what he said is that your ear perceives like a little bit of distortion as something being loud. And so he always wanted his records to sound loud when they came on the radio. And so that's why he always wanted to have just a little bit of distortion on it. We kind of took it a little further than that because we didn't know what we were doing. And our machines back in the day were set up a little different where 0 meant plus 6 dB. So it was already in the red. We were already in the red before we even got to the red.
Right.
But that kind of mistake was the thing that really changed the way I think that record sounded and the way ultimately music sounded, I think, from that.
It was, yeah, man, that was a really cool story. And I know, people like maybe a lot of people that aren't studio nerds, wouldn't get it. But I was like, I just thought it was really cool. Jimmy, take me all the way back. Take me back to, you and meeting Prince and early days of music in Minneapolis. Tell me about how it all started. I know that your father's a musician, but where did Prince come into your life?
Well, Prince came into my life in junior high school. We were students together, and we took a piano class together, and we both already knew how to kind of play the piano. Well, he could really play the piano. I played pretty good, but I was actually a drummer. I thought of myself as a drummer back in that day. And I remember at the end of the semester, they said, hey, we're going to do a musical, Who Wants to Be the Band? And we all raised our hands, and they said, Prince, what do you want to play? And Prince said, guitar. And I looked at him like, guitar? And then they said, Jimmy, what do you want to play? And I said, drums. And he looked at me like, drums? Because we thought we were both keyboard players. And then I remember he walked into the very first rehearsal, he plugs his guitar in, and there's a song called Make Me Smile by Chicago. And Terry Kath, the guitar player in Chicago, who's amazing, Prince rips his solo off exactly like the record. And I just was like, wow, okay, this dude's crazy. Then I remember we took a break. I went to the bathroom. I heard somebody on the drums killing it. And I thought it was the band teacher. And I walked out. It was Prince on the drums. And I just was like, I never seen anything like that. And we were probably 13 years old, I want to say, at this point. So, yeah, it was an amazing thing. So that's where it started. And then in Minneapolis back in the day, it was a bunch of competing, bands in competition with each other. Prince had his band, which was called Grand Central. I had a band called Mind and Matter. Terry had a band called Flight Time. We all were just up there trying to make music. And something about the environment up there was very artistic city. A lot of, great culture up there as far as the arts. And it was cold. So we weren't outside doing stuff. It was like we'd be in the basement and we'd be, rehearsing and working on our music stuff. So that was always our first love, is to do music. And that community was a very, very talented one. I will say that.
Yes, I would say so. And being such a big fan of Purple Rain, and the movie has a lot of truth to it. And I didn't realize, how the time was kind of put together by Prince, but there was this friction and this competing thing. How is that? Like, I mean, is it because of Prince's personality? Because he was it seemed like he was tough. He was a drill sergeant, but it seemed like he had something to do with putting together the time. And so you would think that you guys would be on the same page, but there was some friction between you guys, like in the movie. Tell me a little bit about how that became.
Yeah, well, so the story with the time is we were already a band. We were called Flight Time at that point. So we were already a band. And Alexander O'Neal was actually our lead singer at that point in time. And Morris called Terry and said, well, no, what happened was, so Prince had a song called Party Up on the Dirty Mind album. And Morris was actually the writer of that song, actually did the music for that song. And so Prince said, what do you want? I'll give you 30 grand or whatever, or I'll get you a record deal. And Morris said, I'll take the record deal. So Prince said, okay, go put a band together. Or actually he said, go get your band and we'll do something. And Morris was like, no, I'm not going to get my band. I'm going to go get Flight Time because they're the best band. And so he basically got us. And at that point in time, Alexander O'Neal was our lead singer. But Alexander O'Neal talked his way out of, we had a meeting and he kind of talked his way out of it. He was like, because he always talked in the third person, and he said, Prince, Alexander O'Neal I need some paper. I need a new house. I need a new car. I need, And Prince was like, you're done. And he was like, Jelly Bean's going to be the drummer now. Morris is going to be the lead singer. And meet me at rehearsal at 10 o'clock or whatever. So it literally happened like that. So we were already together as a band. He didn't put us together as a band, but he gave us the opportunity to have a record deal. And then the competition was simply because he drilled us to be the best we could possibly be. But then when we were his opening act, then it was like he created Frankenstein. It was like, oh no, we're going to try to kick his ass, and we did. And to the point where I remember we never played New York and we never played LA with Prince because he didn't want that ass kicking in those big markets.
Wow.
But I will say the best lesson we learned from Prince though was work ethic, because he outworked everybody. He already had more talent than everybody, but then he also outworked everybody. He'd rehearse our band for 8 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. Then he'd go rehearse The Revolution for 6 hours. And then he'd go to the studio all night and work on a song. Then he'd walk in the next day with a cassette, because the cassette days of the 80s. He'd walk in with a cassette and he'd put it in and it would be, Lady Cab Driver or something. It was like, he was just a genius, absolute genius. And so, that's what it was like working back in those days.
What about is something, it seems like such a mysterious guy, even to this day, never did a lot of interviews and just very, very mysterious. You've known him on such a close and intimate level. Is there something you could tell us about Prince that not a lot of people are aware of? What was he like? What made him tick other than music?
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Is there something you could tell us about Prince that not a lot of people are aware of? What was he like? What made him tick other than music?
There was nothing other than music.
Wow.
He was living, breathing music. I mean, walking music. Like, that's what he was. Back in the junior high school days, he was a heck of a basketball player. Very much like Steph Curry, great handles. Didn't have the shot like Steph Curry, but nobody had the shot like Steph Curry. But he had great handles, and he was really a good dribbler and a huge basketball fan. And people probably don't know that about him. And of course, Dave Chappelle did the skit about Prince playing basketball and the whole thing. That kind of thing. That's the truth, though. That's the truth. Because Prince would play basketball. As a matter of fact, Sunset Sound, which is one of the studios he recorded at all the time, there's literally a basketball hoop at that it's just kind of between the studios. So you can't really get like a real game. But he would play horse out there and he could beat anybody. Because he would do it off the branch, off the roof. Like, he had all these shots, trick shots, and he could beat anybody at it. And super competitive. Super competitive. And
you wouldn't figure because he's a little guy, so you wouldn't figure that he would be, he could ball.
No, he could ball. He could ball. I mean, wow. He was close to the ground, so he had, he had those good handles, he could handle the ball really well.
Tell me, Jimmy, ever have a job outside of music? Like, can you tell me what your very first job was, and if you ever had a job outside of music?
Oh, I definitely had. I had a lot of jobs outside of music, but they all made me realize that music was what I wanted to do. But I had a job. Actually, my dad got me a job at his company that he worked at, and it was basically just changing light bulbs. And it was it paid great, but I felt like I was totally wasting my time. And then I went and got a job. I remember during the Christmas season, I got a job at a store called Dayton's, which is like a department store back in that day. And I was in the toy department, and I remember they had these radio-controlled cars, and nobody was buying them. And I said, "Can I take one of these out and play with it? And I think if people see me playing with it, they might want to buy it." And I remember that day we sold out all of them that same day. And they said, "Oh, okay, what else can you want to play with?" And I was like, "Okay." And I loved that job, but that job didn't pay me any money. So I was kind of like, I got to find something that pays a little bit of money that I really like. And music was always that thing. But I DJ'd for a long time. I played in bands, but then I also DJ'd. So anything to do with music was just kind of my life. I never really wanted to do anything else for as long as I can remember.
What do you think like when you were at the age where, you're quote unquote, figuring it out, trying to make a decision on what did you think you were going to become? Like when you were just kind of thinking into the future, visualization, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
Well, when I was really young, I thought I was going to be a pilot, because I was really into planes. I knew every plane. My dad used to take me to the airport. We just watched the planes take off and all that. I even took, and my dad was he had a private pilot's license and the whole thing. So I was really into aviation, and I thought that one day I would probably do that. But once the music bug hit me, I started playing drums for my dad when I was 12 years old, and that was my first professional gig. And once that happened, I just knew music. I didn't know whether I didn't know it would be record production or songwriting, but I just knew that it would have to involve music. It had to. And I actually dropped out of high school to pursue music, and my mom let me do it. And I will say 10 years later, after I would have graduated from high school, I walked across the Grammy stage, and that was
wow.
With her in the audience as my date. And
awesome.
We won Producer of the Year. So yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
It all worked out how it was supposed to.
And you know, so many different, points of your career, so many, big breaks, if you will, meeting Prince, The Time, Janet Jackson, Grammys. What do you consider the biggest thing that happened in your life, Jimmy? Like if you were like, if this one moment didn't happen, whether it was like a big break or maybe all this stuff, we wouldn't be here talking today. Is there a singular moment that you can think of that's like very pivotal for you and Terry becoming who you are today?
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber podcast with Jeff Zito.
Is there a singular moment that you can think of that's like very pivotal for you and Terry becoming who you are today?
Well, besides meeting Terry back in 1973, which was a very pivotal moment for me, and we're still together, of course. So that's 52 years ago. So I think that would be the pivotal moment individually. But I think that when I think about pivotal moments, it has to be the snowstorm in Atlanta, where Terry and I had gone down to produce the SOS band after Prince told us don't produce any bands. And we kind of disobeyed him and went down and produced it. And then we got caught in a snowstorm down there, missed the next gig. Fast forward to that summer, the same day we're going to mix the SOS band song, Prince calls us to the studio, to a different studio, and he basically fires us because he tells us, I told you not to work with other bands, and you did. And so when we walked out of there, we just kind of said, well, what do you want to do? And it's like, well, I guess we're going to go to the other studio and mix this record. And I remember walking in the studio, and the engineer was Steve Hodge. And we knew Steve Hodge just from the liner notes. We never had met him before, but we just knew we wanted him to mix our record. And when we walked in the studio, he said, what's wrong with you guys? And we said, oh, we just got from the time. And he said, well, I don't think you have anything to worry about because this song here is a smash. And he hit play, and the Steve Hodge mix of Just Be Good to Me, SOS band, came out of the speakers. And we were like, oh, my God. And that was the pivotal, to me, the snowstorm in Atlanta would probably be the pivotal moment because it was the worst day of our lives as it was happening. It was definitely the moment where we were, why is this happening to us? That was that moment. And then the result of that snowstorm was us getting fired, which then led to our, 40 plus year career.
Yeah, I would say not a lot of people would say their big break or their pivotal moment in life was getting fired by Prince. So that's pretty cool.
That is a good one. Or as my partner likes to say, freed.
Right. So your partner, let's talk about what you guys today, where are you guys today? What are you doing? I know there's something that you wanted to talk about today, which I wanted to learn about and let people know how they could be a part of it as well. But tell me a little bit about you and Terry Lewis today, fast forward 2025.
Well, 2025 for us has been kind of an interesting year because we're trying to, in our lives, do things that we haven't done before. And so to that end, we've started doing, I remember when we were fortunate enough to get in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, probably 7-8 years ago now, I think when people ask us, what do you want to do that you still haven't done yet? And we said, well, Babyface was standing on the red carpet and we said, oh, we want to work with Babyface. And so we did. We did a single with him, which was cool. And then I said, we want to finish our album that we started like 35 years ago at that point. And so we did that, our Jam and Lewis Volume 1 album. And the third thing we said is we want to play our catalog live because we've never had the opportunity to do that. And so this past year and the year before, we've done some gigs. We played a Minneapolis gig that was very cool, outdoor festival thing. We did 7, 8 shows in Japan. Actually, we've done more than that. We've actually done like 16 shows in Japan now over the past couple of years. And so this coming year, we want to now do some U.S. dates and some festivals and things and just play our catalog. So that's one thing that we're doing that we haven't done yet that we want to do. The other thing is we're really heavy in the documentary space right now. We executive produced a Curtis Mayfield documentary that was directed by the singer Her. That's very cool. And there is a Jam and Lewis documentary being done about us.
Oh, wow.
And the gentleman named Peter Afterman, who's executive producing that documentary, asked us what documentary should be done that hasn't been done yet. And Terry and I said, Gamble and Huff. And he said, why? And I said, because there's no Jam and Lewis without Gamble and Huff. And of course, that also includes Tom Bell, who just went in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Mighty Three, as they're called, out of Philadelphia. So Terry and I are going to make our directorial debut directing the Gamble, Huff, and Tom Bell documentary. And then we're also working on that for next year also. And, you know, of course, we're going to still continue to make music, but those two things are really kind of top of our list because we just want to do things that we haven't done yet and just explore some areas. And the storytelling area, to me, is something that really interests us. And there's a lot of great stories to be told that haven't been told yet. So we're going to discover those and do a lot of those things.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
Jimmy, can you tell me a little bit about the Next Verse event to benefit 100 billion meals?
Yeah, it sounds cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea is 40 years ago, We Are the World and Live Aid both happened. And the idea was to try to eradicate hunger around the world. And in you know, We Are the World's case, it was USA for Africa, so it was in Africa. We now are faced with a food problem that's, you know, much greater than was happening back then. And there's something about the alignment of music in not only raising funds, which it does, but also in raising spirits, which is also needed because mental health is very important. And Tony Robbins, who founded the 100 Billion Meals Challenge, he was interested in us doing a song. And he said, I think a song would power us to 100 billion meals. And so as we started talking conceptually about what that would be, because it's, you know, We Are the World was a wonderful, you know, you watched the video, you bought the record, and that was your involvement in it. But nowadays, with technology, with Zoom, with TikTok, with Instagram, with all these different technologies, people are creating their own content. And we thought, what if we made a song that could be a living, breathing song where we will do the foundational version of it, I guess we could call it. But now it would include people to now go and make their own, write their own verses, do their own versions of the song and all of that, which people are doing anyway on TikTok and all that kind of thing. And so that's the idea of the Next Verse. So what we're going to do is actually do a recording session very much inspired by We Are the World that we're going to do at the iHeart Theater. We're going to do it tomorrow and at 3:30 Eastern Time, 12:30 Pacific Time. And we're basically going to have a bunch of artists, not only in the theater, but also on Zoom, because Zoom's a partner. And there will be people, you know, Duran's joining us from England, and Janet's joining us from London, I believe, also. But there's people around the world that will join in on this, and then there will be people actually at the theater. You will be able to actually Zoom in on the website, which is 100billionmeals.org. On that site, you will be able to watch the recording process take place. So it'll almost be like you're the fly on the wall for We Are the World. If you could have done that, that's the event we're going to do tomorrow. So you'll actually get a chance to watch the song come together, and then it will culminate with the actual release of that song on Christmas Day. And it'll be a worldwide release, and we're going to try to raise, once again, funds and spirits. But everybody can take a part in it, which is nowadays what people want to do. My partner always says, people don't want to watch the game. They want to be in the game. They want to be on the field. So this will give people a chance to do it. And if you go to the site now, all the information is there. But what's interesting is people have already started to write verses. There's people on there doing spoken word. There's people doing singing. I talked to somebody earlier today that said that her and a couple of girls are going to do some things. So the idea is it's very interactive. We want it to be interactive, and we want for people to experience, to me, the joy of giving during the holiday season, because you can see things in the world and go, man, I wish I could do something about that. Well, hunger is one of those things you can do something about, and we're going to try to make it in a way that lives and breathes and evolves over the years. And so the song will take different shapes and all that, but hopefully people enjoy what we're doing. And it's a $10 donation. $10 buys 44 meals, and it gets you into the Zoom to watch the recording session tomorrow. And then and there's an elevated one where it's $19.95 a month, which is called the Lifesavers. So you can also join that if you want to do that. But the whole point is just join in, and I think you'll enjoy yourself. And for the holiday season, I just think it's a good thing to do.
100 billion meals. So is that 100billionmeals.org is the website to, very, very cool. And, I'm very, very gracious with your time. I really appreciate it. If I could ask one final question, everybody you've talked to, everybody you've worked with, I should say, you've worked with everybody. Is there that one person or group that you haven't worked with yet, and you and Terry are like, hey, we've got to work with this group or this person? Like, we've got to, it's like maybe a dream that you haven't gotten to yet. Who is it?
Wow. So yeah, there's so many people we haven't worked with that we want to work with, and we keep discovering new ones every day. That's the thing. But I've been saying for probably the last 20 years, Sade is top of my list to work with.
Wow.
And I know her manager really well. I just saw him at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. And I said, what's up with Sade? And he laughed. He said, you've been asking me that for 20 years. I said, I know. I said, I'm going to keep asking. But she would be top of my list. Terry, if he was on here, he would probably say Janelle Monáe. But I think Janelle is going to be involved with our 100 Billion Meals song, our next verse. So Terry will get a chance. So we'll get a chance to work with her on that. And I told people it's a great excuse to get together and do something, with people who we haven't had a chance to work with. But I would say those two would be top of the list. There's many, many others. And hopefully we're not going anywhere for a while. So we'll try to knock some of those off the list.
Right on. Man, again, you're very gracious with your time, and I really appreciate it. 100billionmeals.org. It's such a great thing to be a part of during the holidays. Let's not forget about people that, don't have the means. And that's important, and glad that you raised awareness. And I could talk to you for an hour, Jimmy, but I'm sure that wouldn't be what you wanted to do today. But I just wanted to let you know how much you've impacted me when I was younger and what you do. And it was a real pleasure speaking with you today.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Have a good day. Thank you.
All right.
When he was really young, he thought he was going to be a pilot. Jimmy Jam told me it was always music. Always thinking about music in the background. First job, worked at his dad's company, changing light bulbs. I think he said the pay was pretty good there, but not at the toy store. He said he worked at a department store in the toy section. Had a lot of fun playing with remote control cars, which, by the way, no one was buying until Jimmy said, hey, can I just take this out of the box and play with it in front of people? All of a sudden, they sold out. It tells you right there, he could have been front of the house, you know what I mean? Which is kind of funny. He's good in front of people, yet now behind the scenes in the music biz. When you ask somebody, what their big break was, Jimmy kind of credits his big break with Prince firing him, which would have put me into a depression. Oh no, I'm working for Prince, and now I am fired. What am I going to do? He said it was that moment, as his partner Terry Lewis says, they were freed from Prince. They weren't fired, they were freed, and free to work with other bands and produce their records. Fast forward to 1986 and Janet Jackson's Control. followed by Rhythm Nation, and man, the list goes on. 41 top 10s in the U.S. And I thought it was interesting of everyone out there, Jimmy really wishes he could have a chance to work with Sade. And I know she's kind of huge, but I'm only familiar with Smooth Operator. And the thing that he's involved with right now, the charitable 100 billion meals. So important around the holidays to just think about those who are in a hard spot. And you think about Christmas and gifts and how fortunate we all are to talk about what we're going to buy or receive for Christmas. And then there's some people out there that are hungry, and that should put a lot into perspective. That just should not be here in the USA. I just made a donation. I hope you would do the same. 100billionmeals.org. Check out the website. You can actually see all of the things that Jimmy is doing to try to get to these 100 billion meals. They're recording a song, just kind of like We Are the World. You can go behind the scenes. You can watch them record it. You can be a part of the whole process. You could be like a $20 a month donor or just a one-time $10. You know, no amount is too small. Imagine if everybody donated $10. Problem solved, right? I think it's really important for people to do what they can for others during the holiday season. So anyway, 1billionmeals.org. It's real easy. A little purple thing on the front page says donate now. It took me like 5 seconds. And by the way, who knew Prince could hoop? Are you kidding me? The guy was like 5'2". He said he had such a feel. He had all the shots like Steph Curry. So if you've never seen the Chappelle Show bit, Charlie Murphy, True Hollywood Story on Prince and how they played basketball. Oh my God. Search Prince Chappelle Show. Oh my God, you're going to be dying for like 6 minutes. And it's true. That's what I can't believe. Prince can ball. Game. Blouses. So I got to tell you, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening. This was a very special episode for me. It brought back a lot of memories when my sister took me to see Purple Rain 40 years ago. I can't believe it. And I can't wait for you to hear next week's guest on Christmas. You'll have to listen. John Lennon's son, Sean Lennon, will be my guest here on Celebrity Jobber. And I tell Sean about the connection that I have with him from the time that we were 5 years old. And I think it's a really important story to hear. So it's a new episode on Christmas Eve. You've got to hear it. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Until next week. Thank you for listening to the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. I'm Jeff Zito.